In the heart of 1920 San Francisco, Chinatown pulsed with its own rhythm, a vibrant enclave overflowing with sizzling woks, secret spice trails and banquets that whispered stories of empire and exile. Here, every dish held history on a plate, from gilded delicacies to rugged street food. Some meals were about power. Others were treasured legends passed from elders to apprentices. Today, we're stepping back 100 years to uncover 25 unforgettable dishes from this golden age, beginning with a showstopper that turned heads the moment it reached the table. 1. Roast Peking duck with plum sauce. When you walked into a Chinatown banquet hall in the 1920s and spotted a duck hanging in the window with gleaming, mahogany skin, you knew something important was happening. Roast Peking duck was no common fare. This bird was for weddings, New Year's feasts, or affluent merchants showing off their status. Preparing it was a performance, air-dried until taut, then roasted till the skin crackled and the meat stayed juicy. But the secret weapon, the plum sauce, dark and rich, made with dried plums, ginger, and rice vinegar. Some chefs guarded their recipe like treasure, passing it down only through trust and time. Wrapped in soft pancakes topped with green onion slivers, it was a harmony of crisp, tender, and bright. Back in 1925, it might have cost $250, steep when monthly rent was just $15. But for those in silk robes, it wasn't just duck. It was a declaration: I've arrived. And across the table, simmering in a porcelain bowl, another status symbol beckoned. A soup so luxurious it had its own underground market. 2. Shark fin soup. Imagine a porcelain bowl being unveiled at your table by a waiter in starched white, steam rising into the air before you even glimpse the contents. Shark fin soup wasn't just a dish, it was the height of prestige in 1920s Chinatown. The fin itself was plain, but when steeped in a golden broth made of chicken, scallops, Chinese ham, and pork bones, it transformed into a delicacy. The texture, silky and gelatinized, made every bite feel like gold on a spoon. Fins were so precious they were smuggled in, tucked in sacks of rice. Only elite community leaders or rich merchants dared to offer it, as a nod of deep respect. In 1924, one bowl could be $5, more than some earned in a week. Guests would slow down for this one, cherishing each bite, and once the last spoonful was gone, another marvel would often arrive, a whole fish intact, silently commanding the table. 3. Steamed whole rock cod with ginger and scallions. In 1920s Chinatown, when a whole rock cod hit the table, time slowed, voices hushed, chopsticks paused midair. This wasn't merely food, it was honor wrapped in tradition. Caught from the cold Pacific, the cod was treasured for its tender, sweet meat. Chefs prepared it whole, respecting every part. Timing was crucial. Too long, the texture turned to rubber. Too short, raw near the bone. Once steamed, it was splashed with hot peanut oil, ginger, and scallions, the room filled with irresistible aroma. In Chinese tradition, a whole fish symbolizes unity and luck. The head, reserved for the guest of honor. Leaving any part behind, considered disrespectful. While affordable compared to duck or shark fin, the gesture mattered most, a sign that you left the comfort of the banquet hall and went hunting for the ocean's finest. And back in the smoky backstreets, a new kind of treasure was dripping with sweetness in restaurant windows. 4. Barbecued pork. Stroll down Grand Avenue in the 1920s and you'd spot it. Crimson-striped pork strips dancing behind glass, glazed to perfection, calling out with scent alone. This was char siu, smoky, sweet, and slightly charred. Not just food, but Chinatown's edible welcome sign. Recipes were personal, handed down in whispers. Honey, soy, 5-spice, and rice wine marinated the meat, which was roasted over open flames till the edges caramelized into magic. Locals snatched it up in grease-stained paper for dinner. Restaurant guests had it hot, sliced glistening as it hit the plate. At 30 cents for a half pound, it fed the working class and tempted them into the warmth of bustling kitchens. To outsiders, it was street food. To chefs, it was seduction through fire and flavor. And in the back room, another bite-sized masterpiece was being curled around a claw and fried in golden glory. 5. Fried crab claws with shrimp paste. If you wanted mouths to drop before the food ever touched taste buds, this was the dish. Picture a pristine crab claw, shell-on, polished, wrapped snugly in crisp golden shrimp paste so light it practically floated. This wasn't just shrimp. Chefs mingled pork fat for richness, water chestnuts for crunch, and Shaoxing wine for that unforgettable aroma. The paste was pressed by hand, molded with care, and fried till it caught the color of afternoon sun. The first bite? Salty sea, savory shrimp, sweet crab, all at once. But the twist? You ate it with your hands, gripping the claw between fingertips, dipping it proud into soy sesame sauce, then watching your neighbors gawk with delicious envy. In 1923, this treasure cost 75 cents. A splurge, but proof that you knew how to surprise a table. But if you thought this was the rarest dish around, wait until you met the soup nicknamed Edible Treasure. 6. Bird's nest soup with rock sugar. In the glow of Chinatown's banquet lights, a bowl of bird's nest soup wasn't dessert. It was elegance perfected. Made from nests spun entirely from the hardened saliva of Southeast Asian swiftlets, this delicacy was linked to emperors and ancient beliefs. Importing it was tricky and costly, but for chefs who could source it, a badge of honor. Once soaked, the nest turned into delicate threads, then slowly simmered in syrup made from rock sugar. The result was silky, fragrant, and nearly mythical in texture, tender but otherworldly, catching light like crystal in broth. In 1921, a single helping cost $8, a week's worth of groceries for some, but to others, proof of wealth, wellness, and grace. After this feather-soft sweetness, the banquet shifted gears towards something heavier, heartier, and wrapped like a secret waiting to be opened. 7. Lotus leaf, sticky rice. Imagine the server laying down a little green parcel, tied, fragrant, steaming with mystery. You open the lotus leaf and a warm cloud escapes, rich with soy, sesame, and slow-cooked meat. This was lo my guy, sticky rice packed with pork belly, Chinese sausage, dried shrimp, and shiitake soaked in sauce. Each bite fused flavor and texture into comfort. In the 1920s, it was a dual symbol, portable fuel for dock workers, luxurious interlude for banquet guests. The lotus leaf wasn't just wrapping, it was a slow infuser, tenderizing and perfuming every bite. And for just 10 cents a parcel, it filled bellies and hearts alike. It was both everyday and extraordinary. Further down the table, a plump bun was waiting, white as clouds and hiding something smoky and sweet inside. By now, you've tasted the luxury of shark fin, the warmth of slow-braised chicken, and the bold sweetness of candied walnuts over shrimp. If any of these dishes brought back memories or made you hungry for more, leave a comment below and tell us, which dish would you love to try today? And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We've still got incredible flavors ahead, including desserts that will surprise you. 8. Steamed pork buns. If comfort had a scent in 1920s Chinatown, it was the warm, sweet steam rising from a bamboo basket of char siu bao. These buns didn't just hold barbecue pork, they cradled memory, flavor, and warmth. Made from the same caramelized char siu hanging in the windows, the filling was chopped fine, slick with thick oyster soy sauce, spooned into soft dough, then pleated closed. Steamed until cloud white, each bun released a puff of scented air when torn apart, a puff that grabbed your senses and tugged you home. 5 cents got you one warm bundle, perfect for hands on the go. Families came early to get the freshest batch before they vanished. And nearby in another corner kitchen, a different scent simmered, soy and spice, painting flavor into every fiber of a bird destined for the chopping block. 9. Soy sauce chicken behind swinging restaurant doors. A pot simmered, brown, bubbling, fragrant with soy, ginger, cinnamon, and star anise. In that pot bathed soy sauce chicken, simple, unadorned but bursting with depth. The stock it cooked in was sacred, a master sauce that was never discarded, only strengthened with every bird it touched, sometimes for years. Some chefs called it a living recipe. The result? Chicken so richly infused, even the marrow tasted like soy and sugar had a secret. Banquet guests welcomed it as a pause, something humble between indulgent seafood and playful snacks. For working families back then, a whole bird was a treat, shared over rice, stretched to make every bite count. And just a few doors down, the heat was rising. Something was roasting. with skin so crisp you could hear it before you saw it. 10. Crispy roast suckling pig. Nothing stirred excitement quite like seeing a whole roast suckling pig emerge from the oven. Golden, crackling, smell spilling into the street. This wasn't an everyday dinner. It was theater. Weddings, New Year feasts, business openings. Bring the pig. Rubbed with 5 spice, salt, and sugar, and slow roasted over coals, the result was dramatic. Skin that crackled like glass, meat that fell apart with a whisper. Guests vied for the ears, the snout, prized parts wrapped in tradition as much as flavor. In Chinese culture, serving an entire pig symbolized success, unity, celebration. In 1925, one roast could cost as much as rent. But for the right occasion? It shouted legacy. After that richness came something humbler, golden, sizzling on a griddle. A cake tied to family and rising fortune. 11. Pan-fried turnip cake. In the early mornings of Lunar New Year, the sound of low-back go hitting an oiled griddle was like music echoing through Chinatown's alleys. Crisp outside, soft and savory inside, this unassuming square packed more history than it let on. Despite the name, it wasn't sweet. It was made from shredded Chinese white radish mixed with rice flour, sausage, dried shrimp, and shiitake mushrooms. The mix was steamed into a block, sliced, then fried to golden perfection. This was more than breakfast. It was tradition in edible form. Its name sounded like good luck in Cantonese, making it a delicious omen of prosperity. Families stacked trays full ahead of the holiday, and its scent drifted down tenement hallways for days. And at just a few cents per slice, low-back go fed workers, children, and elders alike, comforting and grounding. But soon after plates were cleared, something completely unexpected might arrive. Shrimp dressed up like dessert. 12. Walnut shrimp with sweet cream sauce, inside Chinatown's lavish banquet halls. Smiles widened and eyebrows raised when waiters brought out a dish that blended east and west in one dazzling bite. Walnut shrimp was pure elegance with a twist. Jumbo shrimp, tender and crisp from light frying, sparkled beneath candied walnuts glazed in honey. But the real surprise lay in the sauce. A sweet, satiny blend of mayonnaise, condensed milk, and lemon that shimmered like frosting. The first bite was pure contradiction. Creamy, crunchy, savory, and sweet. While not traditional, it was pure Chinatown, a fusion born from resourcefulness and bold creativity. The dish sparkled with golden hues, perfect for symbolizing joy and success at weddings. And though shrimp didn't carry the same prestige as shark fin or bird's nest, its impact was no less memorable. It made a lasting impression for hosts who wanted to impress without excess. And beyond the opulence sat something humbler, fresh from the piers and intensified in a wok. 13. Dungeness crab with black bean sauce. By the roaring 1920s, Dungeness crab had cemented itself as San Francisco's pride, tender, sweet, and caught just beyond the bay. But Chinatown's chefs gave it soul. The live crab was steamed, then hacked into pieces, shell on, so its flavor soaked in during the wok-fried finale. A blazing pan came to life with fermented black beans, garlic, ginger, and a flicker of chili, clinging to every crevice. The beans brought salt and boldness. The aromatics filled the air, and diners weren't afraid to get their hands dirty, cracking, sucking, savoring. No one left neat, and no one cared. From the docks, a crab could cost 50 cents. But once it hit the banquet table, it became an indulgence worth triple. Piled high, piping hot, it was a jewel Chinatown made its own. After such mouth-coating flavors, guests often welcomed something gentler, a clear soup, warm and delicate. Served from a gourd carved like art. 14. Winter melon soup with dried scallops. At grand banquets in 1920s Chinatown, the room often fell into reverent silence when this piece of edible artwork arrived. Winter melon soup wasn't poured into ordinary bowls. It came inside the melon itself. This pale green gourd, ornate with carved dragons and florals, served as vessel and oven. Chefs filled it with broth of dried scallops, Chinese ham, mushrooms, and seafood pearls, then let it stew until the melon's flesh softened into the soup. It was ethereal, light yet flavorful, sweetened subtly by the stewing melon. Ladling it out felt ceremonial, each bowl carrying a hint of steam, softness, and tradition. More than a dish, it embodied elegance and care, proof that the host believed in both refinement and heritage. In the 20s, serving this soup meant two things. You had money and deep cultural pride. And when the last drop was gone, flavors would swing from whisper soft to smoky, noodles tossed late into the night. 15. Beef chow fun. Wander into a late-night kitchen in 1920s Chinatown and you'd hear the sizzle of oil, the clatter of chopsticks and the rhythmic scrape of a spatula on steel, the signal that beef chow fun was in progress. This stir-fry wasn't glamorous. It was gritty and satisfying. Wide rice noodles or ho fun were seared in a scorching hot wok with seasoned beef, sprouts, and scallions. The sauce was rich. Soy, oyster, a touch of magic. But the secret was wok hei, the breath of the wok. That elusive smoky char made the flavor sing. It was fast food before fast food existed. 15 cents a plate, enough to fill you after hauling cargo awaiting tables. Restaurants served it on worn porcelain. Street vendors packed it into steamy paper wraps. It was grounded, generous, alive. And just when you thought duck had revealed all its forms, a twist of perfume and smoke rose from the alley, inviting you towards something regal and smoldering. 16. Tea-smoked duck. In back alley kitchens tucked away from the bustle, a different kind of aroma hung in the air, familiar yet mysterious, soft and lingering. This was tea-smoked duck, a dish of patience and quiet power. First came a soy ginger bath, then hours of drying. When ready, the duck was slow-smoked in a wok lined with tea leaves, rice and sugar until its skin turned dark as cedar, and flesh took on a rich, smoky sweetness. Unlike roasted duck, this had depth that whispered rather than shouted. Hints of caramel, char, and earth, blending into the meat like memory. In Cantonese culture, tea smoke once helped preserve. Here, it elevated. Guests took delicate slices, pairing them with paper-thin pancakes or rice. In the 1920s, you paid dearly for this, often triple a regular roast. But the right guests made it worth every cent. And if you were truly adventurous, the next dish might challenge everything you thought texture could be, with shimmering strands of something from the sea. 17. Jellyfish salad with sesame oil. For newcomers, it was a moment of hesitation, a porcelain plate of translucent ribbons, pale and glistening like glass noodles. But to the Cantonese, jellyfish was delicacy, texture, and pride. This wasn't about bold flavor, it was about the feel. A crisp yet yielding snap that danced under every bite. Preparing it was almost ritualistic, soaked, rinsed repeatedly, and sliced razor thin. Then dressed in sesame oil, rice vinegar, soy sauce, and scattered with toasted seeds. The first taste was cooling, the oil rich, the vinegar bright. It refreshed, cutting through heavier banquets with balance. To summer guests, it was relief. To insiders, it was culinary sophistication, proof the host could source rarities and knew how to serve them subtly. And as the palate reset, the journey curled back toward sweetness. Delicate, crumbly discs with an almond tucked in the center like a seal from home. 18. Almond cookies. In 1920s Chinatown, a meal wasn't finished until steam curled from the teacups, and a plate of freshly baked almond cookies stood in quiet farewell. These weren't flimsy or fussy. They were golden rounds just rough enough to feel handmade, with crisp edges and a whole almond pressed into the top. The dough was simple. Flour, sugar, lard, and almond extract. But the scent it released was anything but. Roasted nuttiness drifted through the air, lingering in memory long after the bite was gone. These cookies were comfort, not showy but sincere. To banquet guests, it was a sweet goodbye. In cafes, a nickel could tempt passers-by. Kids loved their warmth. Elders admired their restraint. And just when you thought the evening had drawn to a gentle close, a dish arrived with tropical brightness, cold, silky, and kissed with gold. 19. Mango pudding with evaporated milk. As the final courses of a grand Chinatown dinner made their exit, what sometimes slipped into view was a square of glowing mango pudding, light, chilled, and almost trembling. This wasn't heavy or overly sweet. It was fragrant and bright, made by pureeing fresh mangoes, often imported from the Philippines, and blending them with sugar, milk, and gelatin. Once firm, A swirl of evaporated milk was poured over the top, adding richness without overwhelming the fruit's natural perfume. Each spoonful was smooth, tropical, and cooling. In an era where few homes had refrigeration, serving cold pudding was luxury in itself. At 10 cents a dish, it was modest enough for families, elegant enough for weddings. And as the bowls were cleared, the next course arrived without fanfare. Warm, simple, rich with memory. A soup that brought both sweetness and superstition. 20. Red bean soup dessert. As the banquet hall quieted and conversations softened, a different kind of course was set gently at each place, a warm bowl of red bean soup. It didn't arrive with a flourish. It arrived like a memory, made from adzuki beans simmered down to velvet with rock sugar for sweetness and sometimes tangerine peel for brightness. The soup was humble but grounding. On chilly nights, it steamed with earthy comfort. In summer, it cooled refreshingly. The beans, red and rich, symbolized joy and luck, a fitting end to a meal tied to fortune and family. It was also practical for restaurants. Beans were cheap, filling, and easy to store. Large pots could feed dozens without stress. For diners, it was soft, nostalgic, and grateful. But occasionally, just when that warmth had settled, something playful and golden rolled onto the table. Crisp spheres with secret hearts. 1. Sesame balls. At the tail end of a Chinatown feast in the 1920s, laughter often returned when sesame balls rolled onto the table, golden, warm, and promising delight. Known as jiandui, these crisp orbs made people perk up before even touching a bite. Coated in fragrant toasted sesame seeds, they cracked ever so slightly between your teeth, revealing chewy glutinous dough wrapped around a soft heart of red bean or lotus seed paste. The contrast was perfect. Crisp outside, pillowy chew inside, then smooth, sweet flavor at the core. Making them took skill, kneading dough, rolling each ball evenly, covering them in seeds, and deep frying until they bounced and spun in the hot oil until just right. In the 1920s, they were everyday favorites, sold as street snacks or banquet desserts, costing only a few cents. Pocket change for most, joy for all. And just when diners thought they'd had their final sweet bite, something utterly different emerged. Warm, flaky, and glowing from the tea house oven. 22. Egg custard tarts, still warm, their crusts catching the light like brushed bronze. Egg custard tarts were the kind of treat that made conversations pause mid-sentence. Called dan tat, these pastries had crossed oceans to arrive in Chinatown, part Portuguese, part Hong Kong, but entirely local in spirit. The crust was all butter and layers, so flaky it shattered under the gentlest bite. Inside rested golden custard, eggs, sugar, and milk, baked just right until softly set. Sweet but never heavy, smooth but never flat, each tart balanced richness and lightness with quiet brilliance. They were prized in dim sum houses, served hot so the scent clung to the air. And in the 1920s, at only a few cents apiece, they were a little luxury for workers grabbing one on a break or families lingering after a shared meal. But for those who wanted a softer landing to end the evening, there was one more dessert, simple, golden, and so airy it seemed woven from steam. 23. Steamed sponge cake, nestled inside a tall bamboo steamer. Golden and humble, Malaigo might have looked plain, until you took a bite. Steamed to perfection, this sponge cake was impossibly tender, light as mist, and full of gentle brown sugar richness. Made from flour, eggs, lard, and evaporated milk, then rested for hours. It was all about softness, not just in texture, but in spirit. Steaming gave it bounce instead of crumb, preserving moisture and turning caramel scents into memory. There was no icing, no filling, no fig leaf, just warmth and comfort. The kind you could eat with eyes closed and remember a family kitchen overseas. In the 1920s, it was affordable, shareable, and ever-present on tea house tables. Parents ordered it for children. Grandparents took careful bites. It was soft, safe, and steady. But just when the meal seemed fully complete, one last thrill could arrive, hot from the fryer and dipped in a tangy sauce that snapped you back to life. 24. Fried wontons with sweet and sour dip. If you peeked into a small cafe in 1920s Chinatown and saw golden pyramids piled behind the counter, chances are your mouth watered on the spot. These were fried wontons, tiny packages of joy crackling in every corner. Thin wrappers enveloped minced pork, shrimp, green onions, and a dash of seasoning before being tightly sealed and plunged into hot peanut oil. Each one puffed and blistered the moment it hit the fryer, turning golden and crisp all over. On their own, they were addictive. But it was the dipping sauce that perfected the experience. A glossy blend of vinegar, sugar, and, sometimes, preserved plums that balanced tang with subtle sweetness.
One bite gave it all. Crunch, savory bite, then that zing of sauce.
In the 1920s, a dime got you a paper cone full, perfect for snacking during a walk down Grant Avenue. But if your stomach could hold just one more treat, the simplest dessert of all awaited quietly, tucked into the center of the table. 25. Preserved plum candy. As teacups emptied and goodbyes began, a modest dish often lingered at the center of Chinatown's banquet tables, a bowl of preserved plum candy. Just one piece, small and wrinkled, held more memory than most full meals. These weren't sugary confections from a candy shop. They were dried, aged plums, coated in sugar or salt and bursting with layered flavor that hit sweet, sharp, and savory all at once. Their complexity came from time and patience, cured over months, imported from Asia, and treasured by Chinese families as both snack and remedy. In the 1920s, many immigrants carried a few in their coat pockets. One candy could conjure childhood markets back in Guangdong. In Chinatown, they were sold in apothecaries and corner shops, but at the dinner table, they were a final nod of gratitude. They helped you digest a heavy feast and remember quietly where you came from. As the flavors faded, you were left with more than just a meal. You were left with belonging. Roast Peking duck with plum sauce. When you walked into a Chinatown banquet hall in the 1920s and spotted a duck hanging in the window with gleaming, mahogany skin, you knew something important was happening. Roast Peking duck was no common fare. This bird was for weddings, New Year's feasts, or affluent merchants showing off their status. Preparing it was a performance, air-dried until taut, then roasted till the skin crackled and the meat stayed juicy. But the secret weapon, the plum sauce, dark and rich, made with dried plums, ginger, and rice vinegar. Some chefs guarded their recipe like treasure, passing it down only through trust and time. Wrapped in soft pancakes topped with green onion slivers, it was a harmony of crisp, tender, and bright. Back in 1925, it might have cost $250, steep when monthly rent was just $15. But for those in silk robes, it wasn't just duck. It was a declaration. I've arrived. And across the table, simmering in a porcelain bowl, another status symbol beckoned. A soup so luxurious it had its own underground market. Shark fin soup. Imagine a porcelain bowl being unveiled at your table by a waiter in starched white, steam rising into the air before you even glimpse the contents. Shark fin soup wasn't just a dish. It was the height of prestige in 1920s Chinatown. The fin itself was plain, but when steeped in a golden broth made of chicken, scallops, Chinese ham, and pork bones, it transformed into a delicacy. The texture, silky and gelatinized, made every bite feel like gold on a spoon. Fins were so precious they were smuggled in, tucked in sacks of rice. Only elite community leaders or rich merchants dared to offer it, as a nod of deep respect. In 1924, one bowl could be $5, more than some earned in a week. Guests would slow down for this one, cherishing each bite. And once the last spoonful was gone, another marvel would often arrive, a whole fish intact, silently commanding the table. Chinatown in the 1920s wasn't just a place to eat. It was a living bridge between old worlds and new beginnings. Every dish held a memory of loved ones left behind, of new homes being built, of celebrations big and small. Some meals roared with spice and fire, others whispered with steam and sweetness. But together, they formed a mosaic, a portrait of resilience and reinvention cooked over fire and tradition. And maybe the most extraordinary part? If you walk through these streets today, you might still catch those same aromas in the air, those century-old echoes telling you, the kitchen, the culture, the story. It's still alive,